20 doctors in white coats circled the billionaire's bed, their hands trembling as machines screamed failure. His fortune, his empire, his power, none of it mattered now. And just when the world thought his final breath had come, a quiet maid stepped forward, her eyes steady, her presence unshaken. What she did next silenced the room, not with science, but with something no amount of wealth could buy. Would you believe healing can come from the most unexpected hands? Tell me in the comments who you think the true heroes in life usually are, the powerful or the unseen. The house was a palace, though no one inside ever called it that. From the outside, the Caldwell estate stood like a monument to wealth, glass walls reflecting the rolling California hills, fountains singing into marble pools, a driveway wide enough to host a fleet of cars. Inside, it was a place of quiet dread. Richard Caldwell, the billionaire, was dying. He had built his empire with iron will and ruthless precision. Shipping, tech investments, real estate, his name carried weight across continents. For decades, Richard had been known as a man of unmatched power, a storm in tailored suits. But at 71, lying in a massive bed that looked more like a throne of silk and machinery, he was reduced to a fragile body struggling against time. Doctors came and went. Specialists from New York, Los Angeles, even Switzerland. 20 in total. All with their briefcases, their charts, their promises. And all with the same ending: we're sorry. There's nothing more we can do. Machines hummed. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic. His son Patrick watched from the corner with folded arms, trying to look composed, but the twitch in his jaw betrayed him. His daughter Claire sat by the window, staring at her father with a mixture of fear and resentment. Money could bend laws, topple governments, but it could not stop death. And then there was Naomi, the maid. She had worked for the Caldwells for 5 years, a quiet, steady presence in a house that often trembled with ego and silence. Naomi was in her early 30s, her skin a deep shade of brown that glowed in the Californian light, her frame strong from years of labor. She rarely spoke unless spoken to, but she had a way of seeing things others missed. While doctors muttered diagnoses and children counted inheritances, Naomi saw the man himself, the one trembling beneath the weight of his legacy. That evening, after the 20th doctor left shaking his head, the house fell into uneasy quiet. The staff whispered in corridors. Patrick shouted into phones, demanding miracles. Claire poured herself another glass of wine. And Richard, though half-conscious, let a faint groan escape his lips, as though he was calling for something no one else could hear. Naomi stood in the doorway of his room, clutching the tray she had brought up, water, broth, untouched. Her eyes lingered on his face. He looked not powerful, not terrifying, but lost. Like a child who had wandered too far from home. She set the tray down gently. Her hands itched, not with nerves, but with a pull, something deep and instinctual. She had always been different. As a girl growing up in Georgia, she had seen things, shadows of pain, flickers of light, things no one else in her family understood. Her grandmother used to say, "Naomi, you got healing in your hands. It's a gift. But a gift's only worth something if you use it." She had tried to bury it. Working in this house, she couldn't be different. She was just the maid. The one who swept floors, polished silver, folded sheets. But now, watching the billionaire everyone else had failed to save, she felt that same pull she'd felt as a child. Naomi took a step closer. The room was quiet except for the soft beeping of machines and the shallow wheeze of Richard's breath. His children didn't notice her. Patrick was too busy arguing with another doctor over the phone, Claire too busy pouring another glass. It was as if the world had forgotten she was even there. But Richard's eyelids fluttered. His lips moved. And Naomi, leaning in just slightly, heard him whisper a word no one else could catch. "Please." Her heart clenched. She had seen men beg before, for money, for love, for second chances. But this was different. This was a man stripped of all his armor. She reached out. Slowly, cautiously. Her hand hovered above his chest where his heart fought weakly against the inevitable. She could feel the warmth radiating from him, mingled with a heaviness that felt almost like chains. Her grandmother's words echoed again. "Healing in your hands, child." Naomi closed her eyes. She wasn't sure what she was doing, not really. But something inside guided her. Her palms settled softly on Richard's chest. At first, nothing. Just the rise and fall of shallow breath. The beep of machines. Then, something shifted. A warmth spread from her hand, gentle but insistent, like sunlight breaking through clouds. Richard stirred. His lips parted, and for the first time in days, his breath came deeper. Not healed, not yet, but eased, as though his body recognized something it had been yearning for. Naomi pulled her hand back quickly, her heart racing. What had she done? Did anyone notice? But Patrick was still on the phone, Claire still at her glass. No one had seen. No one, except Richard. His eyes flickered open, hazy but sharp enough to land on her. And for a brief, fragile moment, the billionaire and the maid locked eyes. Not master and servant, not dying man and caretaker, but two souls caught in something neither fully understood. Naomi stepped back, breath trembling. She had crossed a line. A maid had no right to touch a man like Richard Caldwell. But deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning. Backhand index pointing right reflection question. Do you believe people are given special gifts, even if they hide them for most of their lives? Comment below if you think everyone has a hidden ability waiting for the right moment. The Caldwell estate was never quiet for long. The next morning, the household roared with chaos once more. Doctors arriving in black cars, nurses rushing with charts, assistants darting back and forth. Every hour, another test was ordered, another prognosis delivered, another disappointed shake of the head. Richard Caldwell was slipping further away. Machines beeped steadily in his bedroom, but the rhythm was weak, fragile, and the specialists knew it. They stood in small clusters, whispering, flipping through binders thick with data, pretending they had options left. But Naomi could see the truth in their eyes. They were stalling. Patrick paced the marble hallway outside, shouting into his phone. Claire reclined in the sitting room, sunglasses on, glass of wine in hand, trying to hide the way her hands trembled each time she lifted it. Naomi worked in silence, as always. She dusted shelves, refilled water, carried trays. But her mind wasn't calm. Her hand still tingled from last night, from that moment she dared place it on Richard's chest. She hadn't imagined it. She knew she hadn't. For a brief heartbeat, he had come back to life. Now, as she watched him weaken again, something twisted in her chest. Should she try again? Could she? She wasn't a doctor. She wasn't family. She was nobody here. But deep inside, she knew she couldn't stand by much longer. By late afternoon, the crisis peaked. One of the doctors, a tall man from Los Angeles with silver hair and tired eyes, stepped out of Richard's room and pulled Patrick aside. Naomi, walking past with a tray, overheard just enough. It's a matter of hours now. His organs are shutting down. Patrick's voice cracked. There must be something. The doctor shook his head. We've done everything science allows. Hours. The word clung to Naomi like ice. She carried the tray into the kitchen, set it down with shaking hands, then leaned on the counter, her breath shallow. She thought of her grandmother again, the stories, the warnings, the gift she was told to honor. Naomi had spent years burying that side of herself, afraid of being ridiculed, afraid of being called strange. But maybe, just maybe, it was the one thing this family needed now. Her decision came all at once. She wiped her hands on her apron, steadied her breath, and walked toward the master bedroom. Inside, the doctors were gathered, voices low and heavy. Richard's body lay still against the sheets, his skin pale, his breathing uneven. Patrick and Claire stood by the bed, helpless, brittle with grief. No one noticed Naomi at first. She stepped closer, her heart hammering. Her palms tingled, hot and alive, as though anticipating what was coming. She stood at the foot of the bed, eyes fixed on Richard. One of the doctors finally turned, frowning. "Excuse me, this isn't appropriate. Staff should." But before he could finish, Richard stirred. His head shifted weakly on the pillow, his eyes fluttering open. They landed on Naomi. His lips moved, just barely. No one else could hear it, but Naomi did. "Help me." The doctors froze. Patrick looked at his father, then at Naomi. What did he say?" Naomi's throat tightened. Her voice was quiet, but steady. "He asked for me." The room erupted with protests. "That's absurd. He's delirious. She's just the maid." Naomi ignored them. She stepped closer to the bed. Patrick moved to block her, his voice sharp. "What do you think you're doing?" Her gaze met his. "Let me try." Patrick blinked. "Try? With what?" Dusting him back to health. His words dripped with sarcasm, but there was panic in his tone too, as if he couldn't bear one more failure. Claire gave a dry laugh, swirling the wine in her glass. "Oh please. This is ridiculous." Naomi didn't flinch. "You've tried everything else. Just, let me try." The doctors exchanged incredulous looks. One muttered, "This is nonsense." Another shook his head, whispering, "We cannot allow." But Richard groaned again, louder this time, his lips trembling as he looked at Naomi. His hand twitched weakly, reaching toward her. Patrick froze. His father hadn't responded to anyone in hours, but now. "Fine," Patrick muttered, running a hand through his hair. "But if you make a fool of this family." Naomi didn't wait for him to finish. She moved to Richard's side, her pulse racing. The room seemed to blur, the voices fading until all she could hear was the uneven rhythm of Richard's breath. She reached out, her hand hovering over his chest again. She felt it, the heaviness, the pull, the resistance. Then she pressed her palm gently against him. The warmth came instantly. Stronger this time, flowing through her arm like a current. Her breath hitched, but she held steady. She closed her eyes, not praying exactly, but listening, to something deep, something older than herself, something her grandmother always called the gift. Gasps rippled around the room. The monitors shifted. Beeps quickened, steadied. Richard's chest rose higher with each breath. Color flushed faintly back into his cheeks. One of the doctors leaned forward, eyes wide. "That's impossible." Another muttered, "What on earth?" Naomi didn't open her eyes. She pressed harder, whispering under her breath. Words no one could quite catch, words that seemed to hum with power. Richard's eyes opened, fully this time. Clearer, sharper. He sucked in a long, steady breath and exhaled with force. His hand reached up, trembling, and grasped Naomi's wrist. The room fell silent. He looked at her, his voice hoarse but unmistakably alive. "Thank you." Patrick stumbled back, stunned. Claire dropped her glass. It shattered across the floor. The doctors stood frozen, their scientific minds crashing against what they had just witnessed. Naomi pulled her hand back slowly, her body trembling. She hadn't healed him completely. He was still weak, still fragile, but she had brought him back from the edge the 20 doctors couldn't touch. The silence broke all at once. How did she do that? This isn't possible. There must be an explanation. But Richard Caldwell silenced them all with a raised hand. His voice cracked but carried weight. "Leave us." The doctors hesitated, but his authority, even now, was undeniable. They filed out reluctantly. Patrick and Claire lingered, stunned, but one sharp look from their father sent them out too. Now, only Richard and Naomi remained. He lay back against the pillows, breathing easier than he had in weeks. His eyes studied her, filled with a strange mixture of awe and suspicion. "You," he whispered. "What did you do to me?" Naomi swallowed hard, unsure how to answer. "I just did what I could." Richard chuckled weakly, though it turned into a cough. 20 doctors failed. And then you. His eyes softened, and for the first time, Richard Caldwell, the ruthless billionaire, looked at her not as a maid, but as something else entirely. Naomi lowered her gaze. "I only did what I was meant to do." For a moment, silence stretched between them, heavy but not hostile. Something unspoken passed in that space, a recognition, a connection neither of them could name yet. The news traveled through the Caldwell estate like wildfire. The billionaire who had been fading with every hour was suddenly sitting upright in bed, color in his cheeks, eyes awake. Doctors had left the mansion whispering to each other in disbelief. Nurses packed their instruments in silence, avoiding each other's gaze. No one could explain it, but they all knew the truth. Something had happened in that room, something medicine couldn't touch. And at the center of it all stood Naomi. She tried to disappear back into her work, polishing silver, sweeping corridors, anything to avoid the stares that followed her now. But the whispers grew. Staff murmured her name with equal parts awe and suspicion. Claire scowled each time she caught Naomi walking through the halls, as though the maid had stolen something meant for her. Patrick, meanwhile, stalked her every move with hawk-like intensity. By the second evening, Naomi felt the air thick with tension. The house no longer treated her like the invisible maid. Now she was something else, something no one understood, and that frightened them. Richard Caldwell, however, had no doubts. From the moment Naomi placed her hand on his chest, something inside him had shifted. His body, yes, he felt stronger than he had in months. But it wasn't just that. It was as if some weight he had carried for years had been lifted. For the first time, he felt alive in a way no amount of money, no deal, no empire had ever given him. And he wanted to know why. "Bring me Naomi," he ordered the next morning, his voice raspy. "Bring me Naomi." The order rippled through the mansion like a storm warning. Richard Caldwell hadn't spoken with that much authority in weeks, maybe months. His voice might have been raspy, but the old power in it was unmistakable. Within minutes, Naomi was ushered into his bedroom by a nervous butler. She carried no tray, no mop, no folded linens. Only herself. Richard sat propped against pillows, the California sunlight spilling across his face. His breathing was steady now, his hands no longer trembling. His children lingered on opposite sides of the room, Patrick tense with suspicion, Claire radiating disdain behind her oversized sunglasses. Naomi lowered her eyes. "You asked for me, sir?" Richard studied her in silence for a moment, as though he was seeing her for the first time. Not as a maid, not as background, but as a person who had defied death itself. "Yes," he said finally. "Sit." Patrick bristled. "Dad, this is—" "Sit," Richard repeated, sharper this time. Naomi hesitated, then perched on the edge of a chair near his bed. She kept her hands folded tightly in her lap, fighting the strange awareness that had been buzzing through her veins ever since that night. Richard leaned forward slightly. "You saved me. Don't deny it." Naomi swallowed. The air in the room grew heavier. I only did what I could." Patrick scoffed. "She didn't save you, Dad. You had a surge of adrenaline, that's all. A coincidence. Temporary." Claire's voice cut in, smooth and cold. "Or maybe she's playing a game. People like her always have an angle." Naomi flinched at the words. People like her. She'd heard it before. Too many times. Richard silenced them both with a glance. "Enough." His eyes returned to Naomi. "I don't care what they call it. I know what I felt. When your hand touched me," he paused, searching for words. "It was life. Real life. I need to understand how." Naomi hesitated. How could she explain something she barely understood herself? How could she tell a billionaire that her grandmother used to whisper about healing in the bloodline, about gifts passed down from women who were never believed, never welcomed? Finally, she spoke softly. My grandmother used to say I had healing in my hands, that it was a gift. I never asked for it. I never wanted it. But when I saw you, when I heard you, she looked at him now steady. I couldn't ignore it. Silence. Heavy. Unyielding. Claire let out a sharp laugh. You can't possibly be taking this seriously, Father. But Richard's eyes never left Naomi. I believe her. Patrick's jaw tightened. Dad. Richard cut him off. She succeeded where all of you, and your doctors, failed. So tell me again why I shouldn't believe her. Claire fell silent, though her glare could have cut glass. Patrick's fists clenched, his face red with frustration. Naomi shifted in her chair, uncomfortable with all eyes on her. She wasn't here to win battles. She hadn't asked for this attention. She just wanted to do what was right. Sir, she said carefully, what happened wasn't me alone. I think I was just a vessel. Whatever it was, it chose to work through me. That's all. Richard nodded slowly, considering her words. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled, a small, fragile smile, but genuine. Then I'm glad it chose you. The next days only deepened the rift. Richard grew stronger, able to sit up for hours, even eat small meals. Naomi's presence became a constant in his recovery, at his request. She sat with him, sometimes placing her hands on his chest or his hands, sometimes simply talking. He began to share stories he hadn't told anyone in years, about his childhood in rural Pennsylvania, about building his empire, about mistakes he never admitted to his children. Naomi listened. She didn't flatter him, didn't fear him. She just listened. And sometimes, when his voice faltered or his body weakened, she would place her hand on him, and strength seemed to seep back into him like water into dry soil. Patrick watched all of this with growing unease. To him, Naomi wasn't a miracle, she was a threat. If word got out that some maid with healing powers had saved the Caldwell Empire's patriarch, what would it do to their reputation? What would it do to his inheritance? Claire, meanwhile, was less subtle. She mocked Naomi openly. She called her the witch, muttered about primitive nonsense, and warned Richard that he was being manipulated. But her words only made him retreat further from her and closer to Naomi. One evening, as the sun bled gold across the hills, Richard motioned for Naomi to stay after everyone else left. I should be dead, he said quietly. But because of you, I'm not. I've spent a lifetime believing money could solve anything. Now, at the edge of death, it's you who kept me here. Not them. Not my empire. You. Naomi's chest tightened. I only did what I was meant to. Richard's gaze softened. You're more than what you do in this house, Naomi. Do you know that? Her throat ached. For years she had accepted invisibility, accepted being just the maid. And now, sitting here, hearing those words from a man who had commanded nations with his fortune, she felt seen in a way she hadn't in years. But she also felt the danger. For every ounce of gratitude Richard gave her, she could feel Patrick's suspicion hardening like steel. Claire's disdain sharpening into something cruel. Naomi wasn't sure what scared her more, the gift inside her, or the war it was about to spark in this house. Backhand index pointing right reflection question. If someone you loved suddenly trusted a stranger more than their own family, would you fight to pull them back, or step aside and let it happen? Comment your though this is where all the simmering tension between Naomi, Richard, and his family erupts. Accusations, revelations, and a choice that will change everything. The Caldwell mansion had never known peace, but now it boiled like a storm about to break. Richard's recovery stunned the world inside those glass walls. Each day, his strength grew. His color returned. He even managed to stand and walk a few steps with Naomi at his side. It should have been a triumph, a miracle to celebrate. Instead, it became the spark that lit a firestorm. Patrick grew more restless by the hour. He shadowed Naomi like a prosecutor gathering evidence, grilling staff, demanding explanations. Claire, meanwhile, sharpened her cruelty. She whispered to friends on the phone, spun rumors to anyone who would listen, and planted seeds of doubt wherever she could. The house divided itself into two camps, those who believed Naomi was a miracle, and those who saw her as a dangerous fraud. And at the center stood Richard, stronger but torn. The breaking point came on the fourth evening. Dinner had always been a cold ritual in the Caldwell home, more business meeting than family gathering. But that night, Richard insisted everyone eat together in the grand dining hall. The long oak table stretched beneath chandeliers, polished silver catching the candlelight. Naomi, as usual, stood at the edge of the room, ready to serve if needed. She preferred to stay invisible. But her very presence was a crackling flame in the air. Halfway through the meal, Claire set down her fork with a sharp clatter. Her lips curled into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Well," she said, swirling wine in her glass, "I suppose we should all give thanks to our healer." She gestured lazily toward Naomi. "Without her, Father would be gone, and we'd be fighting over his will instead of this overcooked salmon." Patrick's jaw tightened. Richard's eyes narrowed. Naomi kept her head down. Claire continued, her voice honeyed but venomous. "But isn't it funny? A billionaire, saved by a maid. Almost poetic. Though I can't help but wonder," her gaze sharpened, "what exactly does she want in return?" Naomi's breath caught. Patrick slammed his hand on the table. "Enough games. We need answers." His voice rose, echoing off marble walls. "Dad, can't you see what's happening? She's manipulating you. She's using some trick, some scam. And you're falling for it." Richard's face hardened. "Patrick." "No." Patrick's eyes blazed. "She touches you, you get better. What are we supposed to believe? That she's some kind of saint? Or is it more likely she's playing you, feeding you whatever fantasy you want to hear?" Claire smirked, sipping her wine. "Exactly. Everyone knows desperate men are easy to deceive." The room fell heavy with silence. All eyes turned to Naomi. Her hands trembled, but she lifted her chin. For years she had endured whispers, insults, invisibility. But now she was being accused of the worst, of preying on a dying man. Her voice shook at first but grew steadier with each word. "I never asked for this. I never wanted it. I serve in this house because that is my job. But when I saw your father slipping away, I couldn't ignore the gift inside me. I didn't do it for money. I didn't do it for power. I did it because it was right." Patrick barked a bitter laugh. "Right? Do you even understand who my father is? What's at stake?" Naomi's gaze didn't waver. "I don't care who he is. To me, he was a man in pain. That's all." Richard's hand slammed the table, silencing everyone. His voice, though rough, carried the thunder of his old authority. "That's enough." Patrick froze. Claire raised her brows. Richard looked at Naomi, then at his children. "She saved me. When you two stood helpless, when 20 doctors failed, she reached for me. And because of her, I am alive. Don't think for a second I don't see the truth." Patrick's voice cracked. "Dad, she's replacing us." Richard's gaze cut sharp. "She's not replacing anyone. She's reminding me what family should mean. And maybe that's something you've both forgotten." Claire's glass shattered against the table as she slammed it down. "You're out of your mind. She's a servant, nothing more." Naomi flinched, but Richard's eyes blazed with fury. "Don't you ever speak of her that way again." The words hung like a blade. For the first time in years, Patrick and Claire had no response. Their father had chosen. Later that night, Richard called Naomi to his study. The firelight flickered against the bookshelves, casting long shadows across the room. "I meant what I said," he told her, his voice low but steady. "You're not just a maid to me. You're the reason I'm breathing. The reason I've seen my children's true colors. You've given me something no money could buy, truth." Naomi's eyes burned with tears she hadn't meant to shed. "I didn't mean to cause trouble." Richard smiled faintly. "Sometimes truth causes trouble. But it's worth it." He leaned closer, his expression softening. "Naomi, I don't know what this gift of yours truly is. But I know it's real. And I know it saved me. The question is, what do we do with it now?" Naomi's heart pounded. She didn't have the answer yet. But she knew one thing: her life would never be the same. The Caldwell mansion woke differently the next morning. For years, it had thrummed with the rhythm of wealth, meetings, arguments, footsteps echoing in marble halls. But now, there was something else in the air. A shift. A reckoning. Richard Caldwell sat in the sunroom, a wool blanket across his knees, watching the horizon burn orange over the California hills. His breathing was steady. His body, though not young again, felt renewed. More importantly, his spirit felt alive. For decades, he had been defined by power, money, and fear of losing both. But the maid who had touched him with her gift had shattered all of that. Naomi entered quietly, carrying tea. She moved with her usual humility, but Richard noticed the way the staff looked at her differently now, some with awe, some with suspicion, but none with indifference. She was no longer invisible. "Sit with me," Richard said. Naomi hesitated, then obeyed. They sat in silence for a while, sipping tea as the sun warmed the room. Finally, Richard spoke. "I've made mistakes. More than I can count. But you, Naomi, you've given me a chance I don't deserve. And I won't waste it." Naomi lowered her eyes. "You don't owe me anything, sir." Richard shook his head. "That's where you're wrong. I owe you everything. And I plan to prove it." Later that day, he summoned Patrick and Claire to the study. They entered stiffly, side by side, wearing matching masks of skepticism. Naomi stood at Richard's side, her hands clasped, ready for whatever storm might come. Richard's gaze was sharp. "You've both shown me who you are these past weeks. And though it breaks me, I won't ignore it." Patrick shifted uncomfortably. Claire rolled her eyes. Richard continued. "I built an empire for you. I thought it would give you security, a future. But instead, it seems it blinded you to what matters." His voice cracked, but he pressed on. "Family isn't about inheritance. It isn't about power. It's about love. And when I was at death's door, neither of you reached for me. Naomi did." Patrick bristled. "She's manipulating you." "No." Richard's hand slammed the desk, silencing him. "I've spent a lifetime being manipulated by people who wanted my money. Naomi never asked me for a thing. She gave freely, when she had nothing to gain. That's love. That's truth." Claire scoffed. "So what? You're going to rewrite your will for her?" Richard's eyes narrowed. "Maybe I should." The room froze. Patrick's face reddened. Claire's jaw dropped. Naomi's voice broke the silence. Gentle, but firm. "I don't want his money. I never did." She stepped forward, her eyes locked on Patrick and Claire. "I only wanted him to live. You can believe that or not. But the truth doesn't change." For a moment, no one spoke. The fire cracked in the hearth. Then Richard sighed, heavy with years of disappointment. "You're my children. I love you. But if you can't see the worth of a woman who saved me, not because she had to, but because she chose to, then you'll lose more than just an inheritance. You'll lose me." His words cut deeper than any threat of disownment. For the first time, Patrick's bravado faltered. Claire's eyes glistened, though she blinked the tears away quickly. They left without another word. Days passed. Richard grew stronger still, often walking the gardens with Naomi at his side. Sometimes they spoke about life, sometimes about loss. Sometimes they said nothing at all. But the silence between them was never empty, it was full, like sunlight. The children kept their distance. But in the quiet, guilt began to gnaw at them. One evening, Patrick knocked on Naomi's door. He stood awkwardly, his shoulders tense, his eyes darting away. He cleared his throat. I wanted to say, thank you. For saving him. Naomi studied him. There was no sarcasm, no sharpness. Just a son who had been forced to face his own failures. You don't have to thank me, she said softly. Just be there for him now. That's all he wants. Patrick nodded, his eyes misting, before turning away. A day later, Claire approached Naomi in the hallway. No sunglasses this time. No wine glass. Just her, raw and exposed. I hated you, Claire admitted bluntly. Because you showed me what I wasn't. Brave. Selfless. Loving. And I couldn't stand it. Naomi felt a lump in her throat. It's not too late to be those things. Claire blinked hard, then walked away before tears betrayed her. Weeks later, Richard called everyone together in the grand hall. Staff, doctors, his children, Naomi. He stood at the center, cane in hand, looking stronger than anyone thought possible. I was supposed to be dead, he began. But life had other plans. And I've realized something, wealth, power, none of it matters if you forget what makes you human. Love. Gratitude. Connection. These are the things worth leaving behind. He turned to Naomi. His voice softened. This woman reminded me of that. She showed me that true strength comes from giving, not taking. And I will never forget it. Naomi's cheeks burned as everyone's eyes turned to her. She wanted to shrink away, but Richard placed a hand on her shoulder. To honor what she's done, I am establishing the Caldwell Foundation, not to build more towers or chase more profit, but to fund healing, research, care for the ones society overlooks. Naomi will serve as its heart, if she chooses. Gasps filled the room. Naomi's eyes widened. Sir, Richard smiled. You've already saved me. Now maybe together, we can save others. Tears spilled down Naomi's cheeks. She nodded. Yes. I'll do it. In the months that followed, the mansion changed. Where once there had been coldness, now there was warmth. Patrick began spending real time with his father, learning not just about business, but about life. Claire too softened, joining Naomi in community projects, slowly discovering a part of herself she had long buried. The foundation grew quickly, helping families who couldn't afford the doctors Richard once hoarded. And though scientists searched for explanations for Naomi's gift, she never claimed to understand it fully. She only knew it was meant to be shared. Richard lived longer than anyone expected, not because of machines or wealth, but because he was finally surrounded by love, the one medicine he had denied himself for years. And through it all, Naomi remained by his side. Not as a maid. Not as a servant. But as family.